But that's part of my eventual goal, is to be able to inspire not only more women and more people in the shooting sports and hunting, but to hopefully serve, once I figure everything out, as an inspiration for people with type 1, people with OCD like I've suffered with over the years. Anyone who's different or struggling with something, to be able to find their passion, something that makes life easier, makes life worth it, that makes whatever they're dealing with seem small, and give them a community and something to fall back on.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Angie Scott and Barb Carey.
Hello and welcome to another inspiring episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer. Today we're featuring a young lady by the name of Serena Juchnowski. Serena is a young college student who's already established an amazing career in shooting sports. In 2019, she earned her Distinguished Rifleman Badge. She enjoys introducing youth and women into shooting sports and is a talented outdoor writer to boot. She continues to set new goals for herself, and I'm super excited for you to hear her story. Before we get into our conversation, I wanted to let you know that our friends at Al's Goldfish Lure Company will be at the Wisconsin Fishing Expo in Madison, February 28th through March 1st. Stop by their booth, number 704, and say hi. Tell them the Woman Angler and Adventurer sent you. Get in on some amazing show discounts. I've been seeing tons of photos on social media, people catching fish with their lures, especially of late the new ice fishing lineup, so be sure and check them out. Also, if you're there, Kelsey Yeska and Ricky Pardon are going to be doing a seminar on top shore fishing options around Wisconsin. That's going to be on Saturday, February 29th from 4 to 5 p.m. in Room B. So head on out to that and support a couple amazing lady anglers and learn a few things. All right, let's get into our conversation with the mega inspiring Serena Juchnowski. I can see why you've not had a whole lot of time to get into fishing, because it seems like you're very, very busy. I was looking at your Instagram bio, and it describes you as an outdoor writer, distinguished rifleman, and hunter. So tell us how you got into all those things.
I actually fell into a lot of it by accident. I grew up in an outdoors family, so my dad grew up trapping mostly, and then hunted a lot more as my younger sister and I were getting older. My mom has always been somewhat involved in the outdoors as far as like hiking, biking, things like that. And I didn't actually take too much of an interest until I was in high school. I spent a lot of time trying to do as much as I could with school, like straight A's, things like that. And I lost both of my grandfathers, one before I was born and the other when I was around 1 or 2. So I didn't really know them growing up. And a friend of my dad's father, a guy named Chuck Malone, had come over the house one night and asked if my sister and I would be interested in shooting a .22. I had done a little bit with BB guns before, not much, just some, and I hadn't shot in years. So I hadn't shot a BB gun from the time I was like 7 to 8th grade, when I was around, I think 14, 15, somewhere in there. It was 2013. And he came over and he asked if we'd be interested. And my dad said, well, Kelsey, my sister, won't be, but Serena might. And I was working on homework, and they called me outside, and they're like, do you want to shoot this? And I was like, I don't know what that is, you know. What do I do with it? Do I have to pump it? Because if I have to pump it, I'm not doing it, because I wasn't strong enough when I was younger, and so I hated trying to pump the BB gun. And they're like, you don't have to pump it. I'm like, all right, I'll try it. What do I do? So they gave me a lesson and started me out from the standing position, which is actually the most challenging. Most people start out prone or lying on the ground. So they told me about comfort and triangles and how they're the strongest shape, and they set up a little chicken silhouette in the yard about 25 yards away. And they gave me a bullet after they continued to go on and instruct more about firearm safety, and I had understood all that. And they asked me to hit the target. So I put the bullet in, I lined everything up, pulled the trigger, and hit it. And I'll never forget, I turned around and look on my dad's face was somewhere between surprise and disbelief, like somewhere in the middle of just I have no idea what just happened, and excitement. And I just remember him handing me another 22 bullet and like shoving it in my face and being like, do that again, do that again. And I was like, isn't that what you wanted? So I put the other bullet in and I shot and I hit it again. And they realized that I actually had a little bit of natural ability because they didn't expect me to hit it. And my dad thought that I just happened to hit it the first time. So after I continued to do that, I started shooting some silhouette at a pistol. It's set up as a pistol silhouette range, but at Tesco Rifle Club, which is a rifle club in southern Ohio. Well, not southern, but like mid-southern Ohio. It's more south than where I'm at. They have a pistol silhouette range, but they allow people to shoot on it with rifles and cast bullets. So Chuck took me down there, and it was mostly older gentlemen, and I got to learn to shoot offhand down there, learn to shoot off of sticks, and learn more about shooting. And about after a year of that, which was once in the summer, like once a month in the summer months, and I wouldn't get to do anything in the winter. And I wanted to do more, tried to join 4-H, had some issues finding a program that was near us with what I was looking for, and ended up falling into a high-power service rifle program from South Cuyahoga Sportsmen's Association. So it took junior shooters, who it's classified as anyone until the year of their 20th birthday. You're considered a junior. And we shot small bore inside in the winter and high-power service rifle in the summer. So we would shoot 200 yards, even though the standard course is 200, 300, and 600 yards. So I fell in love with it, started shooting the small arms firing school at Camp Perry, which is a civilian's marksmanship program. Earned my first 4 excellence in competition points in 2015 at that match, and just started shooting across the course. So the 200 to 600 yards, and this year finished up my Distinguished Rifleman Badge by earning those 30 points. And from the data that I found on the internet, I'm about the 118th woman to do it, since it's been around since the 1800s.
Wow.
And I earned badge number 2479. So I'm the 2,479th civilian to earn the badge, which is one of the highest civilian honors for marksmanship that exists. And somewhere in the middle of that, I started hunting. My dad had always hunted. I didn't have too much of an interest until the team that I was on was all guys. I was the only girl, and they would all pretty much shoot to practice for hunting. And I was interested in what they were doing, and finally had people to connect with that were around my age, people that I was happy to see, people that I was able to connect with on a different level than any kids from school, rather than just calling to say, hey, I have a question on math. Once that happened, one of the kids had told me about a pheasant hunt, and I came out and did that and fell in love with hunting right away. Told my dad 3 days before Ohio youth season in 2015, I was like, hey, Dad, I want to go hunt deer. No idea what I was doing. My dad was like, I can't believe you're telling me this 3 days before. I could have set everything up. Happened that somebody at his work had property, and they let us come down. We just came down for the day. I had never deer hunted before. We went and sat out all day. I picked a different spot in the afternoon. And right before sunset, this beautiful buck came in. And I shot it. It's now on my wall. It's the most beautiful thing. And honestly, I think that even though I know that I was very lucky, because that sort of a thing doesn't happen usually, my dad was telling me how long it took him to get a buck that was that size, is I honestly think that happened on my first day of deer hunting to get me hooked, to get me inspired, to know that this is something that I want to do and continue to keep doing. So I honestly feel that it was meant for me on that day at that time.
Wow, that's amazing.
I want to go back to the Distinguished Rifleman.
It's the Distinguished Rifleman's Badge.
Yeah, that's amazing that you were able to get that one, but to get it at such a young age. And I know that was one of your goals. So what does one have to do to qualify for that? You kind of mentioned it a little bit, but... So essentially, to earn the badge, you have to compete in civilian marksmanship program sanctioned excellence in competition matches, which those of us involved in it just shorten and call EIC matches. So those matches are 50 shots. You have 10 shots offhand at 200 yards, meaning standing.
10 shots 200 yards from the sitting or kneeling position. You have to start from the standing position, and you have 2 magazines, one of 2 and one of 8. And you have 60 seconds to fire those 10 shots. And then you move back to the 300-yard line, and you have 70 seconds, but it's the same 2 and 8 configuration as at 200 yards, but it's rapid-fire prone. And then you have 20 shots at 600 yards, slow fire prone. So you have 20 minutes and have to contend with wind and more environmental factors at that point. So when you're shooting service rifle, usually there's 800 matches or the general, and they include sighters or shots that are more for practice to see where your gun is zeroed. And EIC matches don't have those, and they also have a lot of accompanying pressure. So that's what makes it a lot different and makes it a lot more difficult for any shooter.
Can you explain what you call it, a service rifle? Can you explain what that is?
So high-power service rifle is a discipline that's largely based on military rifles and rifles the military has used. So it has started out with different service rifles over the years that have kind of evolved, and now the one in use is the AR-15, which is the civilian version of the M16. And the other rifles that had been used in the past, the M1 Garand or the M1A, the M14, have been kind of more classified as vintage rifles, which they have specific games matches for. But the idea is kind of training for not exactly always military, but for marksmanship, to make sure that there's a force of civilians that are able to defend themselves in case they were needed to go to war. So a lot of that started with Teddy Roosevelt. So basically in February 1903, this is from the Civilian Marksmanship Program website, an amendment to the War Department Appropriations Bill established the National Board for the Promotion of Rifle Practice. So after that, the smaller fighting schools started to train civilians how to shoot. I've been told and heard that a lot of it was from after the Spanish-American War, people were disappointed in the marksmanship skills of a lot of the citizens. So a lot of that was established. And high-power service rifle came out of the military preparation. So there's a lot of military members, current and retired, that shoot the matches. Now, like I said, I compete with an AR-15, but there's specific rules. So the idea is to try to make the playing field as even as possible. So it's not based as much on how expensive your equipment is, but levels it so that anybody can compete. So, for example, they used to have iron sights used to be the norm, but they, a couple years ago, allowed 4.5 power scopes. But you're not allowed to have over a 4.5 power scope on your rifle to compete in service rifle, because they're trying to make sure that everybody's across the same playing field. So a lot of it comes down to position and individual skill as opposed to equipment. Okay. You have a sling that you use for the sitting position or the kneeling position, whatever you're using, and the prone position. It has to be attached to the rifle during standing. You're shooting a round that's 223. Typically, it depends what you want to load, but I've been traditionally shooting 77s at 200 and 300, and at 600 shooting 80.5 burger bullets, which have performed really well for me. And most shooters reload their ammunition instead of just buying factory, because otherwise you'd go broke.
So do you feel like when you're at these matches and stuff, are you the only young woman there?
It's actually starting to change a little bit. High-power service rifle is especially male-dominated. So, for example, in small bore and air rifle and a lot of those competitions, you'll see a lot more females, partially because it's indoors most of the time, or for small bore they'll have like some kind of covering. Where high-power service rifle, you're outside in all the elements. If it's raining, you're going to shoot as long as it's not lightning or thundering. I have laid down in complete mud before and continued to shoot. You'll be covered in bugs. You're outside in the elements all the time. You usually have a coat that you're using if you want to perform well. It's not necessary, but if you want to have good scores. And it essentially looks like a straitjacket, so it looks kind of silly to people that aren't in the sport, but it really helps stabilize your position. So given that, there's usually not as many females because that doesn't always appeal, or they're not familiar with it, especially since we're using an AR-15 sometimes people get a little bit scared because they've heard of the whole assault rifle thing, when it's actually not an assault rifle at all. The AR doesn't stand for that. It stands for Armalite, which is the original manufacturer, which is something that most people don't realize. But regardless, there's about 2 other female shooters that I can think of in Northeast Ohio, where I'm at, and like the surrounding area. So the main club that I shoot at, people come from a couple hours away to compete at the club, and there's only usually 3 of us that are women. They're the rifle club. I'm secretary for Sycamore Hill Rifle Club, and I'm the only active female member at the moment, and I'm the second ever female member they've had since 1928.
Wow.
At the national matches, you'll see a lot more women, especially younger girls, because a lot of times they'll have junior programs that are able to start getting people into it, and you see more women starting to get involved, but the ratio is still very small compared to men.
It's an interesting time to be involved in that sport, I think. You know, I see shooting sports becoming more popular with high school teams, and at the same time, there's such a national debate about guns, and especially the kind you're talking about, the AR guns. And so what do you see? How do you see this kind of unfolding down the road? I mean, I think that, you know, everyone's got their own opinion, but sometimes there's a lot of backlash. Have you been receiving much backlash about the whole weapons that you're into shooting?
Actually, I haven't received much, which I'm very grateful for. Part of it is because I'm a girl, and sometimes I resent that slightly. Not the fact that I'm a woman, but the fact that sometimes people that are anti-gun will kind of say, oh, well, that's okay because you're a girl and because you're defying one stereotype, and therefore the other one's fine. And instead of looking at the entire issue and looking at why I do it, they look at the fact that I'm a girl doing something that mostly guys do, and that's all that they look at, when they don't get the benefits that it has to offer for everyone, not just girls, but young men, older women, everyone. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I've had some people that are incredibly supportive of me and what I've been doing. And a lot of people are still scared, but they're generally at least willing to learn. There's some people that aren't, but most of the time they're not even willing to listen to what you have to say. And I don't have any idea exactly where everything is going to go in the future, but I would hope that people would take the time to educate themselves and to learn rather than go off of ignorance and things that they just hear without experiencing it for themselves.
Well, I know one of your main goals is to get more of these young people involved in the sport and women. How do you go about doing that? Are you an instructor yourself?
I'm not formally an instructor. The junior team that I started with, I kind of started being able to coach and help along some of the younger members that have become like my brothers. I had a young woman reach out to me from Montana earlier this year. Her name's Katie Payne, and she's a competitive archer, and she was coming to shoot the national matches for the first time. So I got to help her and teach her a few things, got to answer some questions for her, and we're still in communication. She shot her first nationals this year. I've tried to, through outdoor writing, do some instructional articles to help people. I'm not formally in charge, but I've pretty much directed and run the junior program for high-power service rifle for Ohio for the past 2 years. So basically tried to get juniors together in a team for the nationals with help from Travis Gilkey of Zanesville Rifle Club. So we essentially have been trying to put juniors together to increase the number of people that are involved, especially at the national level, and encourage the kids to keep going. My dad has also helped me bring some college students that have never been exposed to firearms before to a small bore range where the coaches that I learned from helped mentor the kids and teach them about firearms. I had actually written an article about it a few years ago. And it was amazing because some of them actually took greater interest and want to do that later on in their lives. And some of them, even though it wasn't something that they wanted to pursue, had actually told me that they didn't realize what a family atmosphere it can be, how connected people are in the shooting sports, and that it's not like that they see on TV. There's a big emphasis on safety. Everything's about making sure everyone is safe, has a good time, and is able to learn not only skills that will help them in being able to shoot, but also develop themselves as a person, character traits such as dedication, patience, perseverance, self-confidence. I personally have benefited from a lot of those things, especially when having to deal with some personal struggles or things that I've gone through in my life.
Well, if somebody's brand new and they think, well, I want to try that, how does someone get started in just kind of making that first step to try shooting sports in general?
It can be intimidating. The first thing that somebody has to kind of decide is, I would recommend that they try out a couple of different things. So there's 3 main avenues that people go, either into pistol shooting, rifle shooting, or shotgun sports like skeet and trap. And generally everybody gravitates towards a different thing or what's around their area or what their goals are. For example, if somebody eventually thinks about, I want to get into hunting, they'll usually start out in the shooting sports, even if they've been brand new to everything. And if they want to do upland hunting, then shotgun would make sense. If they want to do big game hunting, then rifle would make sense, especially long distance. But to get started, there's a lot of resources as far as like search engines through like the civilian marksmanship program or other things to find clubs that either have junior programs if the kids are to the year of their 20th birthday or other different opportunities. I know when I was trying to find things out, I wasn't really even sure where to start. And the best recommendation I can give is to just talk to people. You can either, if you find somebody on social media, reach out to them. I've had people reach out to me. Anybody that you know that's part of a shooting club. If you contact your local one and say, hey, I'm interested in doing this, or even contact the Civilian Marksmanship Program, like the new National Shooting Sports Foundation, or like the NRA Competitions Division, they can usually point you in the right direction of what you want to do.
What's your next big goal? Because, you've got this Distinguished Rifleman. Like, what's next for you?
There's another prestigious match at the Nationals called the President's 100, and there's over 1,000 people that compete in the match, and the top 100 receive that designation, the top 100 in the nation. I would like to make that 100 next year at Nationals, and I'll be starting into Palma shooting, which is long range out to 1,000 yards. I'm brand new to it. I've had some help from Krieger Barrels, Kelbley's, Bullet Central. I've been having, I put together a rifle in 308 that I'm going to compete with, and I want to be able to learn Palma shooting and hopefully try out for the United States Young Eagles team, which is under 25, and it's basically the national team for Palma shooting. And I'd like to try to make that team and be able to attend the World Shoot in 2023 if I'm good enough.
How much time do you have to put in to practice on this? I know you have a lot of natural ability, but just hearing this, I'm almost overwhelmed thinking how much practice you need to put in to get to that level.
When I started shooting, I would shoot about once a week with the junior team on Thursday nights. And we would do that all year long, summer, winter. And I would usually shoot a match every weekend or a competition where you're ranked. Some of them were more for practice and didn't matter as much. Some of them were for classification. But I would shoot between 2 and 3 times a week. And I would do that with my dad, who started to shoot service rifle with me because he decided that it looked like fun and he wasn't going to just drive and watch. So he started competing, so we compete together. This year I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to. I got to shoot about once a week or once every 2 weeks, but you need to put the time in. Mm-hmm. So at least a couple hours of practice every week, if not every 2 weeks, to get where you want to go. And that doesn't always have to be live fire. It can be what they call dry firing, or basically having no ammunition in the gun and getting yourself all have your coat on, all your equipment, as if you're going to compete or shoot a match. and fire at a target. Just a small little dot downsized for like your basement or something. And to be able to just practice trigger control, sight alignment, and things like that on your own, which can translate to a better, more stable position out on the range.
So are you basically competing against yourself, or what about other competitions? Like, isn't there these type of shooting sports in the Olympics?
Actually, high-power service rifle is not an Olympic sport, which is something that a lot of people ask me. A lot of times people are like, are you going to go to the Olympics? And a lot of things that people don't realize, the Olympics is more precision rifle, air rifle, small bore, and that's what a lot of the colleges have. A, it's not as scary looking. B, it's easier because it's a shorter distance, and a lot of the equipment is a lot more precise and expensive and things like that. So I'm competing largely against myself, the personal journey of being able to challenge what I've done before. I've already accomplished far more than I ever dreamed I could when I first started shooting. And yes, you compete against other people, but generally, especially in the shooting community, especially high power, everyone's willing to help everyone else. People are willing to give you ammo if you need it. When I first started, somebody gave me magazines because I didn't have what I needed. Somebody will lend you their gun if you need one to help you get started. It's more about having everybody enjoy a sport that they love. And yes, you're competing against other people to see how you can do. But even in the nationals, usually like the first 25 people are separated by like a 1-point differential.
Wow.
So you're looking more at what you're able to accomplish for yourself, for what's going on in your life. So for example, this year I got diagnosed as type 1 diabetic, which has really messed up a lot of what I was trying to do. So being able to earn the Distinguished Rifleman Badge, especially before I turned 21, which is something that a goal I set when I first started shooting, has been amazing to me, especially given everything that I've been through this year. So this year, a lot of my goals were based on things that I wanted to do and challenge myself and challenge my body, rather than trying to look at myself as against other people who were dealing with different, maybe similar things, but not the exact thing that I was going through.
Yeah, that must make it harder. I mean, there's a lot more factors to consider when you're dealing with that kind of stuff.
Yes. So that's part of my eventual goal, is to be able to inspire not only more women and more people in the shooting sports and hunting, but to hopefully serve, once I figure everything out, as an inspiration for people with type 1, people with OCD like I've suffered with over the years, anyone who's different or struggling with something, to be able to find their passion, something that makes life easier, makes life worth it, that makes whatever they're dealing with seem small, and give them a community and something to fall back on that changes their life, whether it's in the shooting sports or not. That's something that I really would like to do.
And you hit the nail on the head there. I think that's, kind of what this fishing movement is about. It's about all those things, and fishing doesn't do it for everybody, but everybody should find what it is that does it for them. And you're an excellent role model for those interested in the shooting sport, because that's your passion. It comes out in your voice, and being the spokesperson and kind of the person that's kind of spreading the word that this is a possibility. It just may resonate with someone, and having that passion in your life and that thing that helps you overcome everything and gives you all that self-satisfaction is what every person needs, and not everybody has that. So hats off to you.
Thank you. I've had a lot of support along the way, especially from my family, and particularly my mom, who has encouraged me to do whatever makes me happy, even when some people had told me, like, why are you doing that? Or, that's just a hobby. Or when I started getting into writing and photography, I'd always been interested in it, but until I got a mentor and things, I never realized that was an opportunity. And some people in my family were like, you can't do that. Like, what are you thinking? And my mom was like, do what makes you happy and everything will fall into place. You have to work hard, which I have done and I'm still doing. But she has been incredibly supportive and an inspiration to me in all areas of my life.
Well, and getting into outdoor riding too is such a smart way to be able to get your message out into the world. And I know you've already been featured in a whole bunch of really big publications in the shooting world, especially. What kind of publications could people find your work in, and how do people follow your journey online?
So I have a website, www.serenajuchnowski.com. That's SerenaJuchnowski. And I have the same handle for my Instagram at Facebook, Serena Juchnowski. So I've been published in some NRA publications, so NRA Family and NRA Shooting Sports USA, along with I've been writing for Junior Shooters magazines for a couple years to try to get more juniors involved, some with the civilian marksmanship program. I also take photographs during the national matches for them as well. And I'm doing a series on junior shooters to try to get more younger kids involved in the shooting sports. I had an article published early this year in Guns and Ammo AR-15, and I've done some work as well with Gunpowder magazine.
Impressive.
Yeah,
and there's
awesome.
A list of all of those on my website with links.
Great. Well, we'll put a link to your website and your socials in our show notes for this episode, so people can go check that out if they don't know how to spell your last name.
Absolutely.
Easier to click on, and we sure appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to share, anything upcoming that we didn't cover? Or Barb, do you have any other burning questions for Serena before we wrap this up?
Well, it's been very informative for me. I'm going to kind of look at some of your links and articles. I have an interest in that somewhat, and I think it's a good thing, to people that are interested in hunting. I think it's a great first step to get involved in the shooting sport. So we're all about mentoring women to get them outside and hunting and fishing and living a life of adventure. And hopefully hearing what you had to say might inspire some people. And thanks for being on the show.
I surely appreciate it. And I just wanted to note that I've had a lot of people that have helped me along the way. And for people that are interested in becoming more involved in the outdoors, rather just on an individual level or career level, I'm hoping to spend my career in the outdoor industry. I'm working on graduating a year early, and I will be looking for a job as I continue in the industry. I'm hoping to get some instructor certifications as well. But I just encourage everyone to talk to people, to not be afraid to try something different. If something doesn't resonate with you, try something else, and to not be afraid to be unique, to be yourself, to find something that makes you happy and makes you a better person all the way around, even if it's not something that everybody else has been doing. Because I have found an amazing community, an amazing second family, not only in the high-power service rifle world, but in my sponsors, and in the outdoor writing world, particularly from Palma and Siopa and Outdoor Writers of Ohio. It's given me not only connections for the future, but people I can rely on if I need somebody to talk to, if I have a question about something that I might be going through. But especially for kids, women especially, who don't always get along in the normal women settings, which is something that I've experienced, the stereotypical things. The outdoor world is a great space to find people that you can better relate to, that you will enjoy your time with, rather than if you don't fit in the regular parts of everything. So I had some things that I did in high school, or some clubs that I was a part of, or even in college. I'm part of several different things, but I have never found the community and the family anywhere else, and the most people that I trust and relate to than in the outdoors.
Amen, sister. Yeah. Amen.
We're all on the same page there. For sure.
Absolutely.
thanks for listening in to this week's episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. If you like what we're doing, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a quick rating and review. We really appreciate it. And as always, continue to spread the word about our show. See you next time.